IVM.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of This Round is on Me. Before I introduce my guest today, I have to tell you something about me. Most people assume that as a restaurateur, I'm also a great cook. That actually couldn't be further from the truth. I'm one of those perfectionists who would rather not try a recipe for fear of it not turning out right and people not enjoying the food. So either I go into the kitchen knowing all the odds or I won't go in at all. So even when I lived alone, survival meant cereal and milk for dinner over a self-cooked meal. Having said that, I love collecting recipe books, watching Nigella on TV or Padma Lakshmi on Instagram. And sometimes I really feel like leaving my desk at work and joining our chefs in the kitchen to learn a thing or two, but that's yet to happen. Well, that's me cooking vicariously through others from a distance. So my guest is probably wondering then why I've invited him on the show today. The thing is, there's so much more to the F&B industry than restaurants, and I couldn't think of someone better to talk to about this. He's one of the most celebrated chefs in the country, a judge on MasterChef India, a television celebrity, author, restaurateur, food film producer, and benefactor. His popularity on television is matched by his tremendous fan following on social media too. Chef Ranveer Brar, it's great to have you on the show today, and thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Gauri, it's such a pleasure being here, and I'm really looking forward to this one, let me tell you. No pressure.
So, Chef, to begin with, what's the last few months been like for you?
Well, it's been up and down. It's been hectic, to say the least. I think all of us have sort of gone through some common curves and some personal curves. The common curve being, initial excitement, saying, "Hey, we're going to do what we always wanted to do," to mundaneness, to boredom, to frustration, to and all of it, and some of it has been personal. For me, I think the amount of travel that I did, I used to be traveling 25 days in a month.
Wow.
So this has been the biggest positive, has been the time that I've got to spend with my parents after that long, with my family, my kid. But then once a traveler, always a traveler. So you can only do it for so long.
Yeah.
But I think it'll make us stronger. I think it'll personally. That's what I tell myself. That if you want a story to tell your grandchildren, then it might be a story of personal victory.
Yeah. Well, you've been actively working on your YouTube channel as well during the lockdown. So, and also on Instagram. I mean, I have to say, your videos, for example, the one about the how to handle food delivery and at home. It was so timely, and it was exactly the boost that all of us restaurateurs needed when we just started our our delivery business. And it was so great coming from someone who wasn't a restaurateur trying to do delivery. And so thank you for staying active on Instagram, and and I know you've sort of been doing your YouTube channel as well. Is there anything else you've been working on? Anything new? Exciting that we can look forward to?
There's a book that I've been working on. We're looking for a publisher. It's more the idea is a North America launch because I have business interests there, and there's a book that I've been working on. It's called The Spice Box. Essentially, it's about various spice boxes in Indian homes and recipes through those spice boxes. Just Indian home cooking, looking at the prism of regional and home cooked Indian meals through that ghar ka masale ka dabba.
Wow! And is that something you're going to publish as a physical copy now, in spite of what's yeah.
So the idea is so the book is, we are looking at currently there's no point launching a book anyway, but we're looking at sort of a New Year launch in the US and UK.
Okay. Okay.
That's essentially what we're looking at.
Well, this is a great time to be working on a book for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just talking about the physical versus digital, a lot of people have been consuming more content digitally, more than ever before during the last few months. And in fact, the stats say that there's been an increase in consumption where people are spending up to 5 hours a day. I know mine has gone up considerably as well. Do you feel that there's going to be a shift from TV to digital, or there has been a shift? Because I know you're on, TV as well as online. So what do you feel about that, considering the sort of what's been happening in the last few months?
I think this is what I think, Gauri. I think that the consumption patterns were changing. We were consuming more over the cell phone than on television. Even when we were on television, we'd stream a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or just watch YouTube of the television. Televisions have become smarter. Broadcast, gradually was getting consumed less and less. What COVID has done is it has sort of accelerated that process. Mm-hmm. It's accelerated that shift. The shift was inevitable.
Right.
Now, I don't see that as a problem for television. I see that as a challenge initially, because you'll have to grapple with sort of a new normal. But you were, an equilibrium was on its way. This is just going to expedite the equilibrium. It's just going to accelerate the equilibrium, and we would have had to deal with that broadcast digital equilibrium at some point in time, a year and a half later. I think in this case it's going to be a little faster.
Yeah.
But you're right. The world has moved to consuming digital content more than television content. Also, I think television sort of has learned its lessons. As a broadcast medium, television is not so nimble.
Exactly.
It's just like an elephant. When it moves, it makes an impact, but then it moves really slow. Yeah. Digital content is something you're at your home, pick up. So I think television did realize this time that suddenly when work was stopped, they couldn't produce, they couldn't create more content. Digital creators were out there just putting content out. So, and at a time when you're looking for new content because you're consuming so fast, television sort of couldn't stand up because they're not so nimble. I think there's a lesson for the broadcast industry in this. They're already taking it. You don't need big budgets, you need to be nimble. And the new formula is in content creation is nimble.
Yeah. No, and sort of speaking of this digital boom and, exactly for that reason, which is that you're able to put content out faster. We're also seeing a lot more people, a lot more chefs, putting that content out, sharing recipes with audiences. Do you see, it could have been that it's something that happened now just because, they had the time and, they wanted to stay relevant, stay in touch with their audiences. But do you see more chefs now, this becoming a sort of a trend? And, as home cooking has sort of grown and become a bigger part of people's, daily life, do you feel that this has also rapidly escalated the need for chefs to be putting these, recipe videos out? And what do you think? I mean, do you think the home cooking thing is you must have seen a burst, a surge in numbers for your videos as well. So do you think that this is because of the circumstances currently and it'll kind of go back to, people going out and the cooking bit coming down, or do you think it's here to stay?
I think I'm very excited about so many chefs being out there cooking and putting themselves out there, because that's what I realized when I first did television, that there's a lot of people who are just looking at someone coming in and hand holding, so many of us who are putting ourselves out right now are going to go through that same curve of connecting to a different set of consumers, and understanding how powerful. See, when you cook, you can feed the people who eat. and the numbers limited.
Sure.
But when you're cooking and impacting so many lives, it's a different high, and all the you don't get it till you get it, right? And a lot of these chefs are going to get that high, and I'm so glad that's going to happen because there was this sort of dichotomy between I cook in restaurants and so I will not cook on television or whatever. It's great to see the line merging because that's how it is supposed to be in the first place. If you're a cook, you're a cook. You whether you make me stand in a tent and say cook for 5,000 people, or you make me stand in front of a camera and say cook a dish and explain, or there should be no difference. And
yeah, I mean, you're right. Like I know that as a restaurateur, there's been this sort of view that you're either a TV chef or you're a restaurant chef, and you can't really be both. And I'm neither, so I can't. I don't know what it's like for chefs, but I think that I do see how much time goes into running restaurants and things, and maybe that's where. And I also see how much time gets invested in being when you want to be creating digital content on a regular basis. So I guess that's where it comes from that. And there's also this view which I don't, you've been on both sides, so maybe you can throw some light on this, that if you're when you're cooking for people and feeding people and getting an instant response, it's very different from when you're cooking to a screen and waiting for people to either follow your recipe and send you messages or not. So
absolutely,
what do you feel about that?
Absolutely, I think everybody has to be doing both. You cannot just cook on television.
No.
That's not the whole objective of the whole thing. Even if you're cooking for the objective is for somebody to eat that food. I think what has happened is, fortunately, content packets becoming smaller, the content becoming more democratic. So what all that has done is it has given you the flexibility to be able to try and manage both. And I think that's going to stay. And I'm so glad that it's going to stay because a lot of us are immensely talented, and the world needs to know how talented we are. And I think it's not about riding on two boats. It's about just tying two boats and making the most of it and carrying more with you. In terms of again, coming back to the whole this whole conundrum of restauranting versus, I think it's also, we have not been able to figure out an equilibrium on how to monetize popularity in restaurants. Because see, what has happened is we've treated, when you are a celebrity chef, you're more of a celebrity than a chef, because that's how you get treated, right? And so there's this, we've not been able to monetize the popularity of a chef in cooking. We've not been able to find that happy medium of how much and how less. I think that process will start.
Mm-hmm.
That process will start post-COVID. It's because the time, you can give a lot more time to restaurants in today's world. I still remember when I used to shoot earlier, there used to be 30-day schedules. It used to be impossible to do anything else because television shoots were, they were slow. They had a certain pace. Sure. They had a schedule. Today you can shoot 45 minutes in a day and create one recipe and put it out there and not shoot for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
Because you have your own platform. You're not bound by television.
But, so talking about that, Chef, as a restaurateur, I've seen massive growth in the number of people becoming food bloggers and Instagram bloggers, and but you can't create a digital brand overnight, and you've successfully managed to build your personal brand over the years. Was there like a roadmap that you consciously worked on, or how did you create this brand? I mean, especially today when there's so many chefs out there, how do you navigate? I mean, not today for you, but when you started out, how did you go about creating that brand for yourself?
I think what I think is extremely important is one, to understand who you are talking to.
But isn't that hard with the digital medium, because you don't really know who you're gonna, hit it off with?
Yeah, but you will know who is responding,
Right.
and that essentially means. So what I and I really want to mention Thomas here, and because he's being himself, and he's saying, you know what, this is me. Whoever likes me sort of likes me. That sort of is where I create a target audience. And that's how it should be. The most important part of being out there is being yourself.
Yeah, and connecting. Yeah,
absolutely. When you're yourself, you will know who you are connecting to, and if that's something that excites you, you sort of take that relationship forward over the years. I think what the biggest mistake that we do is we try and put too much effort and too much science behind content creation. It's about being yourself. I am a small town Lucknow boy who very fondly is very proud of his small town roots, who's a farmer's son. And, I have no qualms about, going to an extremely black tie seminar and giving a speech in Hindi, because I'm extremely comfortable with that language. I think it's about being extremely comfortable with who you are, and letting the tribe sort of grow. It's not, people say it's market driven. It's not market driven. It's personality driven. Right. If the most searched recipe on Google is jalebi, you don't have to make jalebi, because if you don't want to make it, your overnight success is something that this virality culture is sort of bringing in. But there is nothing in our business. There's nothing called overnight success. You have to build it over the years. You have to understand who you're speaking to. You have to understand how they behave. You have to take them on with your journey. I don't speak the same way like I used to speak 5 years ago. And that's what I told the people that I was working with and cooking for, saying, I changed. If you expect Ranveer to say, Namaskar, main Ranveer Brar, aaj hum banayenge ye, I'm not going to do that, because then I'm going to be stuck as being the same guy. You won't let me grow. Someday if I feel like making fun of you on camera, I'll do that. Someday if I feel like dancing, I'll do that. You have to allow me to be myself. If you don't, then you'll see the same guy, which I don't want to be. And I think that's something that is sort of an unsaid pact between what you do and who you do it for. And once that sort of gets set, then people allow you to evolve. People allow you to have bad days. People allow you to be human, and not just be this machine who stands there and says, Namaskar, aaj hum banayenge ye, and I think that's very important to build a brand. You're human. Yeah. You're not fulfilling a need. You're not a machine. And and you'll find your audience. We are a big country. There's enough place for everybody. You'll find your audience. People who invest in content will find you, because they're also, somewhere in some sphere working with that audience.
Yeah. No, I think that's, I say that even when it comes to restaurants, I think that you have to create something that you want to create, that you believe in, and not because it's worked successfully for someone else, and it comes through, whether it's, like you said, your platform, or whether it's a restaurant, it really comes through if it reflects who, your ideas.
Self-expression is key.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. It's so important to connect. It's, whether it's us connecting with our diners who come back repeatedly, or you with your, audience that, I know that you definitely connect a lot with the older ladies, the mums cooking at home, because when I told a few people that we're doing this, they were nuts, and, they swear by your recipes. And I think that's the key thing as well, right? That it's not just a show, it's something that actually works and it resonates with people. And, that's only going to sort of spiral with the more you do. So, you do have, obviously, other than your digital platforms, your writing, as you said, you've had restaurants. How do you sort of balance all of this? How do you manage all of this? And, what's kind of been the driving force for you all these years, building all these different brands and doing all these ventures?
I think, for me, what is when I see myself, so there have been ups and downs in life, and there have been highs and lows. I think what has really worked for me is just have an honest relationship with food, and let it manifest in whatever ways it can. Sometimes it manifests in restaurants, sometimes it manifests in books, sometimes in television shows, and allow you to um, um, express yourself guilt free, saying, "Oh, I haven't cooked in 30 days." Well, it's okay. You've written a book, or you still, food goes beyond cooking. And once you make peace with that, once you make peace with your relationship with food, it just creates, uh, uh, it just creates a peace of mind inside of you, which you know, and that's what it has done. What I decided at some point in time is that if I have to be a chef for life, my relationship with food has to be beyond cooking. It has to be more than cooking, and that's whether it is traveling and discovering and writing and researching and um, talking about it, and I think once you do that, you free yourself of the guilt of, oh, I haven't cooked in a while. Oh,
Yeah.
and it's very, that is something that has worked for me. That is something that allows me to do that.
And I think that over the years you've become such a big inspiration for people, and I know that you've had many mentors during your journey. Like Chef Munir Ahmed and Chef Parmeswaran Narayanan and many more that we read about. And so, what advice would you give to aspiring chefs who are always looking for mentors? And it's not easy necessarily to come up to a chef and ask them to mentor you. So especially if you're a young sort of wide-eyed person just coming out of maybe culinary school, for example. So how should they go about looking for a mentor? I mean, it's obviously had such a big impact on you. So how do you find one who's going to best sort of hone your talents?
I think first, we need to accept that um, when we enter the industry, it's the industry expects us to deliver first and ask later, and that hasn't changed, and that's how it should be. You know, and I think that's very important for everybody who's coming into the industry to understand that we are an industry that expects us to deliver first and ask later. Um, the moment you do that, you won't even have to ask. People see hardworking chefs delivering. They come up to you and say, and that's more natural. I think we have never been an industry. At least the chefs tribe has never been uh, the asking type. It's just been very. I've never had. I call them mentors, but if I were to call them mentors in front of them, they'd be like, "What? You were doing a good job. I just did what I would do." And that's how our industry is. It's not. There's no formal structure there. I think the first thing you need to do uh, as people entering the industry is to understand that it's a deliver first industry. Two is that when you leave the hotel school, you can learn everywhere. You know, and then anybody, when you leave a hotel school, anybody has the ability to mentor you and get you on your feet. It's only a year and a half later, when you've shaped your relationship with food, being in the industry, that you should actually look at personalities that really attract you. And initially, it's about getting the basics. Initially,
Yeah.
it's about. So and that's essentially what it is. Don't panic if you wanted a job at a certain restaurant because you look up to a certain chef and you didn't get it. You have, first 1.5 years, even there or here, you would have done the same basic stuff. You spend these 1.5, 2 years well, build that relationship with food, and you will attract that mentor towards you. That's very, very important. It's a do first industry. Do first.
I agree.
Ask
I mean,
later.
I think it's not just sort of restricted to our industry. I think that in any, I mean, I was an accountant before I became a restaurateur, and I spent about 9 years as a tax consultant. So I know even there, a lot of the opportunities that came my way were just because I just gave it everything, and so I really feel that. It applies to any industry really. It's just that just be willing to get your hands dirty and, give it everything. And really the opportunities just start flowing in. And I really, I completely agree with you. And just speaking of sort of people who are going to be graduating, obviously today's graduates are, I think they're quite lost, possibly, if that's the right word, about, the way forward for them. And, they would have been excited a few months ago. They would have been excited about looking forward to graduating and getting that first sort of full-time job. And, what sort of advice would you give them in the current scenario?
I think, it's a tough industry. It always was. This it's just made it more tougher, but you'll come out stronger. That's for sure. Also, it's a good time for the micro entrepreneur and all of us to shine. I used to work with the German chef at one point in time, and he used to say this often. He used to call me cowboy. The cowboy, always remember, as long as people have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you'll have a job. So relax. And so that is what is true. That's the beauty of our industry. As long as people have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we'll have something to do. It might not be the same structure that we're used to. It might not be like, oh, okay, I'll start from Commie 2. It might be saying, okay, for the next 3 months, let me start a delivery from home business.
Yeah.
Because I have nothing to do. Nobody can take away the skill from me. And I think that is, it's very important to broaden this conversation you have with yourself as to what you want to do in life. And keep that micro entrepreneurship spirit open. If you don't get a job, always remember your relationship is to the food. There's a profession and then there's a job. The profession is not going to go anywhere. Nobody can take away the profession from you. The job might be there, might not be there, might change. The way it looks might change. When we came in, when I started, when I left hotel school, Domino's had just come in. Right. And forget about, the idea of delivery wasn't big. And we'd never traveled abroad as kids and stuff like that. 1997, 98. And they came to recruit and we're like, really? And they were, and boys who joined, my batchmates who joined, they're heading the whole business now. So, but things don't show up in the same structure as you expect them to show up. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not meant to be.
Yeah, I think it's about keeping an open mind. You're right.
Absolutely.
And just sort of, Chef, talking about that and becoming a micro entrepreneur and sort of possibly right now a lot of chefs are doing things from home. Supplying cooking from home, and we've seen this sort of burst of things like DIY meal kits. And I know you'd launched it like long before lockdown. So it's not something new, but it's obviously taken on a new, it's taken on a renewed importance in people's lives today. So what do you feel about these? Are these trends or are they here to stay? Things like meal kits or healthy eating. Is that just what people are focusing on right now because they're looking at the current sort of situation from a health perspective and focused on that? Because I know that your restaurant was also a vegetarian only restaurant, which is for a fine dining space is quite a brave move. And so like all these things about going vegetarian and DIY meal kits. Like these are all things that we're hearing today in our industry as sort of these new trends that everyone should be getting on. And what do you feel like? Are they just trends, or are these a new way of eating?
So, again, so I just for kicks, every business aspect of mine that fails, I always tell them that I'm shutting it down now, but at some point in time, I'll tell you, see, I said so. So that's the only kick I get out of failed businesses. But it's with meal kits, it's that see, I said so moment. I think they're here. It's not a trend. I think it's here to stay. Semi prepared meals are here to stay for two reasons. One is a surety of health, and second is that suddenly the amateur cook or the relationship with food that the consumer has built, which is a cooking relationship, it's been a good enough time for the relationship to settle in. So people are more comfortable cooking themselves. They get that kick, the high that all of us live for, of cooking, creating. So for both these factors to have come in at the right time, I don't think it's a trend. I think it's here to stay. Please put your money in it. For everybody who's listening to it, meal kits are a big chunk of what we're going to do, especially in the cities that we are talking about: Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, Hyderabad, and so on.
No, I mean, I agree with you. And, but, and what about like in terms of the diet? Do you think that that's going to see a change as well? Like, obviously people are saying that to stay away from meat right now or poultry and things like that. But is that just because of this fear factor, or is there a growing consciousness towards healthy eating? I mean, we've seen, for example, like plant-based meats and becoming suddenly the big thing, and even in Asia, in China, you're seeing big burger brands adopting this into their menus. And so is this something that you see happening in India as well? Is there sort of room for, I did a show actually, and there was another podcast show recently with the Good Food Institute, which actually talked about the scope for plant-based meats in India. And I've always, I talked about how I think that here, you're a cook, but I know that how important it is to have meat fall off the bone, for example, and the flavor that brings to the food and things. So, what do you see happening here, considering eating culture?
I see, personally, I've always believed that drastic conversions never really help. Because it's like trying to quit smoking. You gotta, for some people it works. Quitting cold turkey, for some people they leave it over time. What I feel is, personally, we're going to consume less non-vegetarian food, but there is rationale behind. There always was rationale behind plant-based foods. It's not the whole thing. But okay, I just want to quickly bring it down to a few thoughts. So I think we're going to be consuming more vegetarian food. I don't think non-vegetarian food is going anywhere. I think as a society, as a culture, we've always been vegetarian. And the fact that we're going to have to look more inwards for cuisine solutions will automatically bring up more vegetarian options, because a lot of imported produce is not going to be available, because we're going to be working with. So we're going to have to look inwards. And inwards, there is a big bank of vegetarian cultures and microcultures that are there. I think it's that gradual movement. I don't see those things suddenly become, I always told you, become vegetarian. I don't think that's going to happen. I think gradual movement of reducing non-vegetarian elements in your diet is something that's happened, and that's going to stay.
And is that something that even, you're conscious of when you're doing your your YouTube channel and things, are you sort of consciously incorporating this when you're planning, your next recipe and the way you want the channel to, maybe the direction you want it to go in?
Yeah, I think I've always sort of personally had a bias towards vegetarian food. Whether we at home we don't consume non-vegetarian food much, and the only time because I trained in Lucknow and we do a lot of non-veg food there, is when I learned more of it. But I've always uh, believed, and I've always been more, but I've never been saying don't eat non-veg. And I'll never be that. I'm never, as a person, I'm never going to dictate what you should be eating and what you shouldn't. But what I've always tried to do is include more vegetarian food in what I cook. I think it's because it's only just and fair. There are a lot of farmers who need avenues for their produce to be consumed. And so I've always been a sort of a 70-30 kind of a person who's cooked 70% vegetarian, 30% non-vegetarian food. And I'd like to keep it like that. I don't see that changing. I'm not going to turn into a 90-10 person or a 100% vegetarian person.
Yeah. And I think that sort of resonates with even the whole, the new mantra, vocal for local, and, going, trying to look nearer to home, so to speak, for, sourcing ingredients as well as supporting businesses, and I think that's been never, more important than today. So I see that happening in every aspect of life, and obviously food is a big one that, I do believe that we will see that happening. And as a restaurateur, I think even we are now conscious when it comes to engineering our menus of this, this new sort of dietary aspiration, but also sourcing ingredients. You're right that finding things which we had, but I do also believe that it's very important. I can speak from my experience as a with, for example, the table, which is a very ingredient-driven menu, that while we completely believe in the idea of using, local produce, and but we also believe in using the best quality, and I think that either if you are going to create something, it's important to have that, the best of that if you're going to do it, or you may choose not to have that on the menu. But if you are going to do something, make sure it's of the highest quality when it comes to the restaurant. So I think that it's about finding that balance, and, in whatever we're doing. But anyway, coming back to, this has been sort of extremely insightful. And so I just want to ask you, do you have any sort of parting words of advice for chefs, restaurateurs, young cooks, bloggers about how to navigate the way forward, and, just how to kind of maybe think about things, going forward? I
think for me personally, the mantra has been very simple, be real, be yourself. And I think that is what the future is. That's the future of restaurants are manifestations and expressions of individuals. If you believe in being real and being yourself, the restaurant is real, honest, and yourself. I think that for me is the most important part going forward. Even more so because people have a lot more ways to access you and get touch moved and inspired by you, and use all those tools to reach out, and be a little forgiving. We live in a world where competition is so much that sometimes we're just too hard on ourselves as chefs, as people, as entrepreneurs, as restaurateurs. Be a little forgiving, and always remember that people will always have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you can always bounce back.
Great. That's a fabulous note to end on. But just before I let you go, Chef, we always end on a fun note with a set of rapid fire questions. So just say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Sure.
So what's the one cooking experience that you can never forget?
I think my first cooking at my langar is something that I can never forget. Those, a 11-year-old boy cooking in those big kadhais. Never forget that.
Wow. What's your favorite cuisine?
Bengal food from East Bengal.
Which is your favorite cooking ingredient? So I have to tell you here, my colleague who helps me out, her mother told her that she knows what it is. So we're going to test that theory. So what is your favorite cooking ingredient?
So, dhania.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So,
She was right. Okay.
There's coriander in my blood.
Yes. What is your comfort food? Something you can eat every day?
Khichdi. I think khichdi is something that has always worked. Just numbs me down, cleans my head.
I agree.
Just khichdi and ghee.
The most common mistake that people make while cooking?
Overcomplicated. I think overcomplicated. And over the years, I've learned as a chef that the less you put, the more you're in control and the better the food is.
Yeah, keep it simple. So I know we normally have 5, but I can't help it. I'm going to ask you one more.
Go for it.
3 quick cooking tips.
I think, have patience. That's what I always say. It's really important. When you cover something, then leave it covered. When you're looking, you're not cooking. So that's one. When you're looking, you're not cooking. 2, always add salt in stages, so you're more in control. Don't be overconfident and put all the salt at one point in time. Always add salt in stages and keep tasting. That's the second tip. And the third tip, which I always believe in, is take it off the flame before it is cooked. Yeah, I think what we do is we just cook, unless you're in a restaurant, but if you're cooking at home, take it off the flame before it is cooked, because you're going to keep cooking. You're not going to consume it then. So we overcook our vegetables, we overcook our meats, because we just, cook it completely and then leave it for half an hour. There's residual heat in it. It keeps cooking, it overcooks, and we lose the texture of it. So believe in the residual cooking. I
agree with you. The one thing I can make is scrambled eggs, and that's my tip, is that put the heat off before it completely cooks, and they're just perfect. Absolutely. It's the only thing I can cook. So,
well, they are difficult to cook. Good scrambled eggs. Simple things are the most difficult.
It is, right? Yeah. But anyway, Chef, look, this has been so fantastic picking your brains and hearing you speak. And thank you again so much for being on the show. I'm sure that we'll hopefully have another session very soon sometime. But thank you again for taking the time.
Fair enough. And look forward to seeing you when this is over.
Yes. Well, with that fantastic advice and those great tips, I hope you're feeling inspired to get back into the kitchen. I think even I might just venture in there. Well, if you enjoyed tuning in today, don't forget to tune in next Wednesday on This Round is on Me.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I want to remind our Tamil-speaking audience about the new show from Kadai Podcast. The previous season was Punyan Selvan. The new show that we're doing is Sivakamyan Sabata. Kavita Jiva, who's the host of the show, basically what she does is she retells these old classics in a modern idiom. I think you'll really enjoy that. Quickly running through some of the other guests that we had this week. Luke Coutinho showed up on Cyrus Says, where he and Cyrus had a great conversation about fitness and all things related to that. Rahul Dakuna was on Gauri Devi Dayal's show. This Round's on Me. Again, great conversation around brands and things like that. Maruk Inayat had Kaveri Banzai on her show to discuss Sushant Singh Rajput's death and the effect it's going to have on Bollywood as it goes forward. Archana Vora, who is a director of small and medium businesses at Facebook, she was on Advertising is Dead talking about the kinds of work that Facebook is doing with smaller businesses. And remember, Edges and Sledges continues its fan series. Do definitely check that out. And last, one final thing, that Cock and Bull this week was really interesting. Cyrus, Kunal Vijayakar, Gauri Devidayal, and myself spoke quite a bit about the restaurant industry and the challenges that they're facing in this pandemic. So do definitely check that out. I think you'll enjoy that. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Namaskar, this is Ashish Vidyarthi. Yes, my friend, these are challenging times, but in these challenging times, we can create something extraordinary. Do take time to listen to my podcast, Begin the Journey, available on the IVM Podcast, website, app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, we have a great opportunity called life. Cheers.